Today we're going over the most absurd, the most ridiculous commanders in the entire format.
I'm Mia, and I really like playing meme commanders.
I'm BZ. I never let you guess my next move. We're the Nitpicking Nerds, sponsored by Card Kingdom. Get ready, because if you were thinking, I have nowhere to buy cards, go to Card Kingdom, because they have great prices. And if you buy $50 or more in singles, guess what? Free shipping.
They have the staples, they have the off-the-wall cards, they have sealed, they have everything you will need. So go check them out, use the link, tell them we sent you. Also sponsored by Dragon Shield, best sleeves in the multiverse.
Pretty good sleeves.
If you use the code
NERDS
at checkout, you can save 5% of your real money tax dollars on your entire order. That is a lot of money.
That's you buying sleeves for your commander decks for the same price, except no, it's less. It's just saving money. It's just the same thing, but less.
And it helps the channel.
And we're sponsored by Moxfield. They're going to be talking to you through us in the middle of the video. And if you want to see us do some exclusive gameplay or maybe some podcasts that you can't get anywhere else, there is extra Nitpicking Nerds content out there, even though we make videos on YouTube every day. There is extra content out there, and you can even get audits from your commander decks from us personally.
We love you guys. Thank you for supporting the channel. Help the cats go to college.
First, we got to define what we mean by absurd. This is unusual, off-the-wall gameplay or strategy, something that wouldn't really be viable in any other format but good old dirtily Commander. These are some of the weirdest things you could possibly do in the format.
They're a little bit funky. I really think they're a lot of fun. So let's get started with the first one. It's Zedru the Great-Hearted. 1 red, white, blue for a 2/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, you gain X life and draw X cards, where X is the number of permanents you own that your opponents control. And if you pay red, white, and blue, target opponent gains control of target permanent you control. So you want to have a lot of permanents that hurt you, but then give them to your opponent so it hurts them instead.
Yeah, or just give away useless stuff. If you can give away a lot of like tokens or something at once, then you take advantage of Zedru's ability, and like it does gain a lot of cards and life over the course of the game, but you've got to actively give away your own stuff. So some of the cards we're going to be using is a brand new one, actually, Coveted Falcon. 1 blue for a 1/4 flyer. When it attacks, you gain control of a permanent that you previously gave away, but it has disguise, and when you turn it face up, you can give away any amount of your stuff and get that many cards, and that's great for Zedru because you get even more cards back.
It is 3 mana to put down and 2 mana to flip back up, but that is a reduction because for Zedru, using Zedru's ability, it's 3 mana per permanent, so this can be a discounted way to give a ton of your permanents to your opponents.
Yeah, we can also use Humble Defector to just give itself away. We're drawing cards off of it, and then as long as it's under somebody else's control, when we go to our upkeep, we get another card off of it every turn.
Vidalcan Plotter is a great way to swap lands, which is a super weird ability, but you might have a land that hurts you, who knows?
I actually kind of like this card. I feel like I want to try to play it more because it shuts down utility lands, but also gives it to you, and you obviously just give them like a basic or something. So this is on ETB. I'm kind of maybe wanting to try out Vidalcan Plotter, but I think in terms of cheap, dumb bodies, you know, it comes down, it chump blocks later, who cares? It's even something you can give away with Zedru because the ability of exchanging isn't tied to it. So that could be 2 permanents that you now don't control, but you do own.
3 mana is not a lot, so I could see this fitting into a curve just for the little bit of utility. 9 lives is also a great staple in this deck, because if a source would deal damage to you, you prevent that damage, put an incarnation counter on it. When there are 9 or more incarnation counters on 9 lives, you exile it, and when it leaves the battlefield, you lose the game.
Well, I'm not going to control it. I'm going to give it to you, and then if you get hit 9 times, you die. Or if Mia's in the pod, when she plays Farewell and chooses all modes, you die.
I think this is a really funny, I'm not even going to say win con, this is a funny lose con for your opponents.
Yeah, it's not a win con because it only kills 1 person at a time, but it's like in that category. And no one is going to play 9 lives in Commander ever. And so when I see it, I'm like, hold on, I got to read that. And then I read it, and I'm like, oh no.
The art for it is so cute, though.
There's other cards we can weaponize by giving them away, and that's Crown of Doom. 3 mana. It says when a creature attacks you, it gets +2/+0. And then as soon as we give it away the first time, all our opponents can do is pass it around to each other, and they have to deal with the downside of it.
That's really funny, and it's only 2 mana to play like hot potato with this artifact. I think that's really funny and really cheap too. So if they're low on life, they'll have to spend some of their own mana to give it away, and that's less stuff that they can do and more stuff in time that you get on your own spells. Steel Golem is also a great one. 3 mana for a 3/4. You can't cast creature spells. Doesn't matter if someone else has it.
Yeah, we can play terrible cards to give away. There's cards that have benefits and give themselves away, but why don't we just give opponents something that they actively would never want? So in creature decks, this might just shut them out of the game, because of this stupid steel golem, and I know they're going to try to like attack people with it. They say block, please block, and they just won't.
Just play more removal. And Approach of the Second Sun is another way to win in this deck. You have to cast it twice, and it goes 7 down your library, but if you cast it twice, you win.
Yeah, when you talk to me about commander decks that don't really do anything and have no clue what they're doing, and it's just a complete crapshoot on what you're going to get out of the deck, you know Approach of the Second Sun is going to be their win condition. Like, it seems like you're not really doing anything, and you're mostly just moving things around and exchanging resources. I bet you have Approach to the Second Sun in your deck.
Plus, there's just so many ways to draw cards in here. You're going to want to have a high life total because once you play this, everyone's going to be like, oh, we have to swing at you immediately.
Yeah, you could fire off Approach and then get to your upkeep, trigger Zedru, draw 6 cards off of it, and then you just win. But next up is a commander that I think is synonymous with complete and utter nonsense. It's Feldegriff, 1 blue, white, green for a 4/4. Green, it gains trample until end of turn. Target opponent creates a 1/1 green hippo. White, it gains flying until end of turn. Target opponent gains 2 life. And blue, return it to its owner's hand. Target opponent may draw a card. This can only give out resources as it gets very, very minor upsides. It's also an anagram of Garfield PhD, hence the redonkulous name. But this is like a way to force your opponents to gain life. They can't say no. Force your opponents to get 1/1 hippos. They can't say no. And they can't say no to drawing a card, but it does mean that Feldegriff has, like, I don't know, reduced commander tax, because every time they try to kill it, you'll bounce it and then only have to pay 4 for it next turn.
I mean, it's such a meme, right? It looks crusty, giving people hippos. I mean, I think it's one of the only ways in Magic to do that, if not the only way. And you just have a lot of the pillow fort type deals because it is in Bant.
Yeah, this is a deck that is going to force your opponents to either win the game in some kind of king-making thing, which I'm not a huge fan of, or force them to enable your combo. But it all starts with Ghostly Prison. Whenever someone's doing something like this, you know they got Ghostly Prison in their deck. I don't even necessarily think it's the best card in the world, but I think there's just something about absolute nonsense and Ghostly Prison that go hand in hand.
Because it's like, no, let me keep doing my nonsense. Keep me around for as long as possible. Also, don't king make. BZ went too fast for me to say that, but don't king make. I don't like it. Trouble in Pairs, 2 white for an enchantment. If an opponent would begin an extra turn, that player skips this turn instead. Whenever an opponent attacks you with 2 or more creatures, draws their second card each turn, or casts their second spell each turn, you draw a card. You want to get to your weird little win cons and your, group huggy and stacks pieces, not really stacks, but pillow fort. And so you're going to want to draw as many cards as possible. People are going to be getting more resources because of you. Why not play Trouble in Pairs?
Yeah, you're giving them creatures to attack with, and you're giving them the option to draw more cards with the other Feldegriff ability, so they might trigger this a lot. Another way to trigger Trouble in Pairs that is probably the biggest group hug card, at least the most synonymous with group hug to me, is Rites of Flourishing. It gives everybody an extra draw, and it gives everybody an extra land drop. I think this card will quickly spiral the game out of anyone's control, and you just go, hey guys, we're all on this journey together. I don't know what's going to happen.
Hope you're playing a lot of high mana stuff and fast, because that's the player that will go right ahead, and I don't know if it's always the Feldegriff player that ends up on top of that. Braids, Conjurer Adept is also one that falls into the group hug. 2 blue for a 2/2. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player may put an artifact, creature, or a land card from their hand onto the battlefield. This one gets spicy real fast, especially if they have big beaters like Eldrazi in their hand or something like that.
Yeah, as soon as you play Braids, obviously you can't take advantage of it. So everybody gets to take advantage of it first, and I think we're on the honor system or we're on the let's just see what happens system. And everybody puts out their best thing, and the Braids player, they put, what do they put?
Sometimes Omniscience.
How about Windborn Muse? They're going to put out some other Ghostly Prison effects. Arbiter of Nullridge. This is where we're getting from group hug to holding the table hostage territory, because this is a 7-mana 5/5 vigilance, and when it ETBs, each player's life total becomes the highest life total among all players, and we have Feldegriff, so we are going to force one person to gain 20 life, and then force everybody to go to 60 and say, your move. Do you really want to go to baseball practice, or do you want to stay here with us?
Let's talk about Hostage with Everybody Lives. 1 and white for instant. All creatures gain hexproof and indestructible to end of turn. Players gain hexproof until end of turn. Players can't lose life this turn. Players can't lose the game or win the game this turn. Imprinting this onto an Isochron Scepter is really Hostage.
It's hostagey. I don't think it's that good, but I think, we got a lot of comments when we talked about this card, and we were like, Everybody Lives, I don't really see it. I think everybody who was commenting was a Feldergriff player who wants to force everybody. It's like forced life support. Whereas they're like, just let me die.
I just didn't realize there were so many Feldergriff mains here. Comment below if you're a hippo Feldergriff main.
Comment below if you're a Feldergriff main. And we also have, since we can give out so many hippos, and it's so funny to say that word, we can use Dingus Staff that whenever their creatures die, it deals 2 damage to them. So we force them to have a bunch of creatures, and then we kill them all somehow.
Vanquish the Horde, perhaps?
Yeah, this is an actual way. I don't know, maybe this is controversial in the Feldergriff meta or universe, but this is a way to win the game as the Feldergriff player.
A meme deck that I love to see is Phage the Untouchable. 3 black, black, black for a 4/4. When it ETBs, if you didn't cast it from your hand, you lose the game. When it deals combat damage to a creature, destroy it. It can't be regenerated. When it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. So you're going to want it to either bring it to your hand and cast it and then deal combat damage, or stifle the ability for it when it ETBs so you don't lose and you can start swinging around with it.
Yeah, one of my favorite commanders on this list has to be a commander that just doesn't work. If you cast it from the command zone, like God intended, you die. And I think that's so funny that people still found a way to make this work. And we're going to use things like Torpor Orb. It's a 2-mana artifact. Creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. So we can play Torpor Orb early, and then if we play Phage, instead of losing, nothing happens. And now we have a creature that says, if I hit you, you lose. It goes from 0 to 100 real fast. It's like, oh, you're going to die because you can't do this. And then it's like, oh, wait, I'm going to die.
It's so funny. Another one is Sundial of the Infinite, 2-mana artifact. And if you pay 1 and tap it, you end the turn, activate only during your turn. So you're going to stifle that ability of you losing the game.
Yeah, with the trigger on the stack, your turn is now over. And then the trigger is exile and it doesn't resolve. Another one that I think is, I was starting to read these and I was like, oh man, is the Phage deck real? We have the Golden Throne, 4-mana artifact. If you would lose the game, instead exile it and your life total becomes 1, and you can tap and sack a creature to add 3 mana. So now, instead of losing with Phage, you go to 1 life with Phage. That could actually be useful for certain things. I know if you wanted to play like Repay in Kind, which is the opposite of that hostage card, this one puts everybody at the lowest life total. So you could use like the Golden Throne plus that, and then like a Blood Artist or something.
Where's End the Festivities when you need it?
It's not in these colors. So sad. How about Netherborn Altar? It's 1 and a black for an artifact, and you can tap it and put a soul counter on it. Put your commander into your hand from the command zone, then you lose 3 life for each soul counter. So a repeatable way to have Phage never be cast from the command zone because she's always in our hand.
I mean, there's so many ways to put your commander in your hand now instead of just bringing it from the command zone. I mean, there's a land that just staples it on. If you have recursion for that land, then you could do that too. So I think the Phage deck is pretty real. There's also Endless Whispers, 2 black, black for an enchantment. Each creature has, once the creature dies, choose target opponent. That player puts this card from its owner's graveyard onto the battlefield under their control at the beginning of the next end step. You just aim it right at your opponents and they lose the game.
Yeah, this requires Phage entering and you not losing and then Phage dying. But if that happens, you don't have to attack with it. You can even set up a situation where you attack, kill somebody with the combat damage trigger, then sack it, then kill somebody else, and now it's just 1v1. And you know that you got Torpor Orb out, so Phage is coming back next turn.
There is a lot of setup to deal with the Phage deck, but I think it's really funny. Another one is Dothy Embrace. It just gives target creature shadow until end of turn if you pay a little mana into it. And you're going to give Phage shadow. They're not going to be able to block. They're going to lose the game.
Yeah, this is all super plausible. It's going to happen every game. We're going to get all 5 of these pieces now. We're going to assemble a Exodia, and we're going to attack with Phage. The last one here is Crick, Son of Yawgmoth. This is 4 mana, I guess, and some life for a 2/2, and it says for each black and a cost, you can pay 2 life. So once we set up all this stuff, if we have Crick out, we can play Phage for only 3 mana and 8 life. It's funny that every way to cheat out Phage seems to involve killing yourself anyway. Where it's like, oh, no, I don't lose the game when it enters. I just lose 11 life because I had to pay 8 mana to reduce the pips and 3 life to put in my hand.
I mean, Phage is high risk, high reward. These people like to gamble, and if you do, well, so be it.
Next up in our absurd commanders list is Obeka, Splitter of Seconds, brand new. 1 blue, black, red for a 2/5 menace. It's already weird. And whenever she deals combat damage to a player, you get that many additional upkeep steps after this phase. Okay. Obviously, this is the deck that wants to take upkeeps in the middle of its turn.
This is just a big gamble. It all rides on Obeka. You're going to be playing things that care about upkeeps immensely. So if Obeka doesn't deal that combat damage, you're going to be just getting these once per upkeep triggers, and that's going to be very fair, which you're not looking for. One of the cards in here that's great is Xanathar, Guild Kingpin, 4 blue black for a 5/6. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose target opponent. Until end of turn, that player can't cast spells. You may look at the top card of their library anytime. You may play the top card of their library, and you can spend mana as though it were mana have any color to cast spells this way, you're going to want to get at least 3 and then just pick all of your opponents and then look at the top and then just pick the best spell for you.
Yeah, it's pretty convenient because if you untap with Xanathar, that's one opponent you're looking at, and then if you hit with Obeka, even just for 2, that's the other 2, and you can now cast all of their spells and do like a weird triple Bolas' Citadel thing. Xanathar is so goofy. It's such a bulk rare, but I think it really shines in this deck. Speaking of bulk and shining in this deck is Descent into Avernus. This just kills everybody because now you're getting 2 counters on it the first time, and then when Obeka hits, maybe she hits for 3, but then you get 4 treasures, 4 damage, 6 treasures, 6 damage, 8 treasures, 8 damage, and we're still now in your second main phase after that, so you get to cast all of your crazy spells, and that's like, to me, this has got to be like the number 1 Obeka card like in existence.
This is so juicy, but just remember that the damage and treasures hit you too. I mean, of course you want the treasures, but as soon as that damage starts stacking up, you might also be getting hit for like 12, 14, etc.
It's nonsense. It's complete nonsense. The other thing that's doing well with Obeka is Courts. Court of Embereth says if you can hold the monarchy at your upkeep, you deal damage to each opponent where acts as a number of creatures you control, and that's after you get a 3/1.
There are so many good courts, I think. The ones from Eldraine are really shining now. But I'd say even the one that like mills people or deals damage that isn't Court of Embereth could really be great in this deck.
Yeah, the other thing that's so good about the courts is they're a little bit harder to trigger on your upkeep for the maximum effect because you could lose the monarchy during the entire other 3 players' turns. But this time, we can take the monarchy back with Obeka, and so when we go to our fake upkeeps, the next bonus upkeeps, we have the monarchy. And like you said, with the blue court, you can mill everybody for 30 or something, or get 3/3/1s and then deal 3 damage times the number of creatures you control.
What about Extravagant Replication, though? It's 6 mana for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of another target non-land permanent you control. What if we had 10 courts instead?
This is actual nonsense. If you can get this going and start copying other things, and there's some other things that copy on their upkeep as well, and they can become other things. And this is every card we're reading and every card we will continue to read is complete. It's a joke, but Obeka sort of ties it together in a way that is functional, and you could maybe win some games with it. Obviously, Paradox Haze is in this deck. It enchants you and gives you an additional upkeep step.
This is what I mean, though, by like, it all rides on Obeka. If that's not, you gotta protect your lady. And Embercleave, if you liked 2 or 3 upkeep steps, how about like 12? It costs 1 less for each attacking creature you control, but you attach it when it ETBs, and it gets +1/+1 and double strike and trample.
So Obeka now hits for 6 instead of 2.
Yes.
And another way to go about this upkeep strategy, if you don't want to do the like 87 enchantments that all cost 5 that have a mild effect on your upkeep, you could go the suspend route, since suspending removes 1 each upkeep. So like Physis, it's suspend 5 and it destroys a creature and they lose a lot of life. But if with Obeka, you can maybe get all the suspends off right away and turn it into not the slowest sorcery in the world, but a regular sorcery. With all of this build around, you can cast a regular sorcery.
On its face, it's so expensive. It's 7 mana normally, but if you can get those suspend triggers, that could be really funny. I do like either way that you could build Obeka. It just takes a lot of effort.
There's a third way you can build it, and that's through Moxfield.com. If you're not building it on Moxfield.com, I would say your win rate is in jeopardy, because if you don't have that easy UI and the ease of access and the visual grid and the stacks and the sorting and the price viewing, you might be missing out on some of the better Obeka cards, honestly.
If you like Obeka or any of the commanders that we mentioned here, you can actually search them and you can find decks from people all around the world who have built them. If you want to take a little bit of inspiration here and there to make your own, it's very easy to do on Moxfield.com.
And it's very easy to move to our next wacky, goofy, ridiculous commander. It's John Arenicus, Vile One, I think is his name, and he's 2 blue-black for 3/3 at the beginning of your end step. Target opponent gains control of one of your creatures, put 2 counters on it, and tap it, and it's goaded for the rest of the game, and it gains a pretty pivotal thing. This creature can't be sacrificed, and whenever a creature you own but don't control attacks, you draw a card. That's a lot of words, but we are kind of taking the Zedru, like, pacifism stuff, and we're like, no, full punchies all the time.
This is actually really sick. I used to have this deck. I played it a bunch, but it was really, the creature can't be sacrificed is so important because you're playing a lot of like, each opponent sacrifices a creature type deal, and they usually only have a couple things after you get rid of all of the rest with your own creatures, and then they can't sacrifice the big boys that you're bringing out. One of them is Archfiend of the Dross, 2 black for a 6/6 with flying. ETBs with 4 oil counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, you remove an oil counter from it. If it has no oil counters on it, you lose the game. When a creature an opponent controls dies, its controller loses 2 life. That has a lot of words, but mostly the lose the game one is the important one that's stapled on. But the creature an opponent controls dies, its controller losing 2 life is never that bad.
Yeah, so you're going to give away an 8/8 because John Renicus always puts 2 counters. So you're giving away an 8/8 flyer that's going to be smacking your other 2 opponents. You have to deal with the fact that when your creatures die, you lose 2, but you're kind of playing a very few. You're giving away all your garbage, bulk bin rares you've never seen before, and your opponents are going to go, what, huh? And then read it and then go, what the heck? And then they're going to try to sacrifice it because that's always what happens. And you have to go, no, you actually can't get rid of it. You're going to have to board wipe or something.
I was playing a lot of removal in here, like Soul Shatter or Vraska's Fall and that sort of thing. So they were like, yeah, oh, wait, okay.
I see. I understand now. I think probably the most brutal one, aside from losing the game, has got to be Desecration Elemental. 3 and a black for an 8/8, so this is a 10/10 that's goated with John. It's got Fear, and whenever a player casts a spell, you sacrifice a creature. But you can't sacrifice Desecration Elemental, so they're going to be stuck with a 10/10, beating face, and nothing else. That player is locked out of the game.
This is really fun to make sure to be like, oh, look over there, because you don't have a choice to. Evil Eye Urborg is another one that really shines in this deck. 4 and a black for a 6/3. Non-eye creatures you control can't attack, so that's basically all of them. Whenever Evil Eye Urborg becomes blocked by a creature, destroy that creature.
That's before damage, so there's no killing this thing in combat.
No, and you don't really have any eye creatures except for maybe changelings, so basically all of your stuff will be held as blockers.
It's perfect because this is the creature that's goated, and everything else that you probably would want to send at the John Renicus player because you're like, well, I need to kill you. I'm killing everybody else, and now they're killing me, and we have to get you off the board. You just can't because your non-eye creatures can't attack. This one's perfect. I don't even know how you kill this one because at least, like, theoretically, Desecration Elemental can be blocked by like a 12/12 artifact creature in combat, but Evil Eye just would kill whatever blocks it.
This one was the super nasty one when I was playing it. Wretched Anurid is also a great one. 1 and a black for a 3/3, so this comes down super fast. When another creature ETBs, you lose 1 life. So these are the little dinky, like, all right, you can take it. It's fine. And then it doesn't really call for removal in terms of like target removal, but it does add up over a while because it'll sit a little longer than you'd think.
I love this deck. It looks so stupid because this is 1 and a black for a 3/3, and back in the day that was really strong on a creature, and so they were like, we gotta balance it. Let's have it be completely terrible and you lose the game if the game progresses too long. And I think Wretched Anurid is so funny. And there's another one, Thought Eater, 1 and a blue for a 2/2 flyer. Whoa, hold on. That's too good. We can't just give them 1 and a blue 2/2 flyers. Your maximum hand size is reduced by 3. This would devastate me. I don't know if I could come back from this.
I actually put this on my friend, and he just like kind of kept it around because, again, these creatures, a lot of them are not worth putting target removal if you have to save it for like one of the other big beaters that are coming at you with John Renicus, like the 12/12. So you're like, oh, why would I use it on this 2/2? And then you have to discard a bunch of cards every turn, and you're just like slowly losing the game due to disadvantage.
Yeah, Thought Eater is kind of brutal. We also, since John Renicus is so important to this janky game plan, we got to make sure we can have other ways to get rid of our nonsense so that we don't have our hand size reduced by 3, and we don't have to sacrifice a creature whenever somebody looks at us the wrong way. So we have wrong turn, 2 and a blue, just target opponent gains control of target creature. Let's just give one of our guys away and say, hey, you've got 4 turns to get this Archfiend off the board.
The only problem with this is the fact that it can be sacrificed at this point because it's not goaded due to John Renicus's like little ability, but if there are upkeep triggers or something like that, you might be able to get away with some shenanigans. And my favorite card in here is Exchange of Words. 1 blue for an enchantment from Infinity, so you might not have heard of it. When it ETBs, choose 2 target creatures. For as long as this remains on the battlefield, exchange the text box of those creatures.
This is a legal magic card that is legal in Commander that you can play.
So it doesn't matter if one of the creatures is gone, it'll still have the text box of the other creature despite like sacrificing the one creature that you switched. You usually switch this with Archfiend of the Dross because it'll switch the text box, the other creature won't have oil counters, and then they'll lose. It doesn't matter that the name changes because the name always refers to the card that it's on.
Right,
that's
so
a little weird.
If you switch Elvish Visionary and Archfiend of the Dross, the Elvish Visionary now says, at the beginning of your upkeep, remove an oil counter from Elvish Visionary. If you can't, you lose the game.
But I feel like one of the biggest meme commanders is Norn the Wary. Red for a 2/1. Whenever a player casts a spell or a creature attacks, you exile it, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. You want to be able to just get a lot of ETB triggers so this can come in and out and just get a lot of value for you.
This card by itself is absolute nonsense. It doesn't do anything. It literally can never deal damage because it can never attack. It can never block because that means something's attacking. So he's just a scaredy cat who's scared of everything. And like Mia said, we can take advantage of the fact that really the only thing Norrin does is enter the battlefield multiple times. So we can play Perforos and say every time this happens, whenever he enters, he deals 2 to each opponent. And that's actually a real clock because so one of those 2 things is going to happen every turn. So that's 4 Norrin enterings a turn cycle, and that's 8 damage to everybody.
This is just like a pseudo Perforos deck. Another one is Rose Room Treasurer, a 3 and a red for a 4/3. Whenever another creature ETBs under your control, you create a treasure token if this is the first or second time this ability is resolved this turn. Otherwise, you may pay X. If you do, it deals X damage to any target. This can help actually dealing damage to like your opponent's life totals or big creatures you might be worried about.
Yeah, this says now Norrin gives you mana instead of damage. And then if for some reason you can stack up 3 creatures entering, it's not going to be from Norrin by himself. Maybe on your turn, you can also throw some damage to somebody's face. So those may even be cards that you've never even seen in a Norrin the Wary deck, because generally what I see Norrin the Wary decks doing is absolute chaos, just trying to devolve the game to a point where everybody goes, can we just start another game? Or everybody goes, yeah, I have no idea what's supposed to happen now. Like with Confusion in the Ranks, 3 red for an enchantment. Whenever an artifact, creature, or enchantment enters the battlefield, its controller chooses target permanent another player controls that shares a card type with it, and then you exchange control. Now this actually is very powerful with Norrin, but it creates very confusing game states. Norrin enters over and over and over, so you can constantly exchange him because when he gets exiled, he comes back under your control.
I mean, red is the color for chaos, right? That is what mono red decks in the chaotic field love to do. Another one is Wand of Wonder, 3 and a red for an artifact. If you pay 4 and tap it, then you roll a d20. Then each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery, then shuffles the rest into their library. You can cast up to X instants or sorceries from among those cards, exiled this way without paying their mana costs. If you roll 1 through 9, X is 1, 10 through 19, X is 2, 20 is X is 3, so you might get value, you probably won't. 4 is a lot to pay for this, but it is random and you get to cast stuff from other people.
It's when you ask the Norrin player, what does your deck do? And they say, I don't know. And then they're like, let me spend 8 mana for some of your spells.
Yeah, I don't know. What does your deck do? Then we'll find out.
We could also go the Punisher route, where instead of Group Hug and Group Chaos, it's just Group Slug, like with Sulfuric Vortex. It says they can't gain life, and now it deals 2 to everybody on their upkeep, just ticking the clock of the game down. This opposite. You won't end up with people in this version of Norrin saying, can we go home? Because they'll be dead.
I think that this is a more definitive version of Norrin, actually. But a completely punishing card is Ruination, 3 and a red for a sorcery. Destroy all non-basic lands. If you're playing more than one color in Commander, you're probably going to be playing a lot of non-basics.
And then you're probably going to lose. Norrin there's a lot to do with this man. And this is one of the ones I was alluding to when I said, if you put this spell in the stack, I'm probably going to concede just out of convenience. This Thieves' Auction, another card I'm surprised is legal. 4 red for a sorcery. Exile all non-token permanents. Starting with you, each player chooses one of the exiled cards and puts it on the battlefield tapped under their control. Repeat this process until all cards exiled this way have been chosen. So let's say everybody has 10 non-token permanents. There's now 40 permanents to choose from in the middle of the table, and everybody one by one has to decide over and over and over with differing card pools, because the best card constantly leaves, what the new best card is and what they want. And most of the time, everybody just ends up taking most of their stuff back anyway. And oh my God.
Usually I take people's commanders with this. I know BZ usually scoops to this. I'll play this one out.
This is like, I scoop to this more than I scoop to Expropriate.
I'll play this out, especially because I play a lot of board wipes. It's like, okay, I'll take all the lands.
Oh man, it's even worse. It's even more of a
sure,
waste
bye.
of time. I don't have time for this. There's so many different flavors of Norrin decks, and I feel like they're all absolutely absurd. They 100% fall into this category. The last one is a very old commander, but it's very cool. It's Corona, False God, 1 and Wooburg for a 5/5 haste. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player untaps Corona and gains control of it. And whenever she attacks creatures of the type of your choice, get +3/+3 until end of turn. It is worth noting she is an avatar, and you can choose avatar so that she attacks as an 8/8 bare minimum. The interesting thing I thought about this deck and what makes it so nonsense is there's nothing to stop Corona from coming at you. So you have to build that into the deck.
I feel like Wooburg commanders are always just like helms for really nonsense decks, but Corona is the one where it's always nonsense.
It's so bad for you on first glance that I love that people went around and tried to make it good for them.
When people get control of Corona, it has to like not come at you for the most part. So one of the things that are great in this deck are the impetuses. We're going to talk about incriminating impetus in specific though. 2 in a red-black hybrid for an aura that you enchant a creature, you're going to be enchanting Corona. When it ETBs, you suspect it, so it has menace and can't block, and it gets +2/+2 and is goaded. This is a way to get commander damage on people, and so make sure it doesn't come at you.
Right, now we're attacking, well, not we, the table, are attacking with a 7/7 menace that could pump itself into a 11/11, 10/10, and then just sort of get commander damage racked up real easy.
It just matters that it doesn't come at you because it has the ability. It has menace, which means more opponents' creatures are going to be like getting out of the way if they don't want to be hit by it, and it's basically like a 3-hit kill.
Yeah, it's 2 hits if we can pump it up at all, or maybe we can give double strike or something. But what's worth noting about the impetuses is that because we still control the impetus itself, we don't control Corona, but it's still goaded in our favor. It's not goaded for the person that gains control of Corona.
I feel like with all of the meme decks, there's always like a bunch of rules that you're like, no, actually, even though you have control of it, I have control of this. So it's okay, I promise.
I know it says I lose the game, but I'm stifling the trigger. We also have the Sound of Drums. It's kind of the same thing, but if enchanted creature would deal combat damage to a permanent or player, it deals double instead. And if this thing ever dies, you can always return it from your graveyard to your hand. So Corona is just going to be sending, solid 16s at people.
Oh, that's a 2-hit kill right there. That's just really nasty. I mean, at some point, you're just building this like a Voltron deck. Gahiji, Honored One, 2 red, white, green for a 4/4. Whenever a creature attacks one of your opponents or a planeswalker they control, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. This can really help with your opponents having combat strategies anyways, but then also buffing Corona.
I love the idea that you are going to try to win with commander damage because of everybody else attacking with your commander. And it's going to force so many attacks, and you could definitely go some kind of like mass goad route, but I'm just even talking about Corona. We're just going to power up Corona so that she's a 1-hit or 2-hit kill, and just watch everybody squirm as they struggle to like throw out chump blockers.
I mean, she's going to be really expensive to bring out 6 mana, and a lot of that are pips, so you're going to want to make sure she hits real hard when she can.
We got to make it count. We also have Gift of Immortality. This is the aura that you want to put on it, because now whenever Corona dies, she just comes back under your control, and then if it survives a turn, Gift of Immortality also comes back. So now there's just no way. You have to double kill Corona very, very quickly, or else she's just going to continually be passed around the table and attack everybody.
It's 2 and a white too, so this is very cheap to put down. Homeward Path, each player gains control of all creatures they own or colorless, which is not why you're playing it. So if you need to get Corona back real fast, you can just zzz right back to you.
Yeah, if something goes wrong, and the wheels fall off, that you've got Corona into this massive monster, and they kill the goaded enchantment or something, and they do this. That's when you go, all right, bailing out, Homeward Path, activate, give
right
me it
now.
back.
Assault Suit is another good one in here. 4 mana for an equipment. It gets +2/+2, has haste, can't attack you or planeswalkers you control, can't be sacrificed. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you can have that player gain control of equipped creature until end of turn. If you do, untap it. I mean, this is just for Corona. It's a little bit of protection so it doesn't attack you.
Well, what if we don't have Corona? We need to build another Corona.
Build your own Corona.
So this is a way to have that give the creature away ability that Corona has. This is a horrible card. It's 1,000 mana, and this card doesn't even force them to attack with it, which it definitely should have. I don't know why it doesn't. I think it's from like 2010, so they weren't thinking about that, but we'll throw our many goad enchantments on whatever creature is under this, and we'll have fun.
4 mana come down, 3 mana to equip. That is a lot. But if you also want to talk about someone who was there when Takeja died, how about Slicer, Hired Muscle?
There's too much text for my blood, but basically what it does is it's a 3/4 with double strike that just attacks everybody. It's the gain control every upkeep, and Slicer also can't be sacrificed, which is a bonus. That is something you have to deal with Corona, is figure out how to do that, because Corona can be sacrificed.
This is a really nasty card, actually. I've seen commander decks built around this, and even on a budget, this hits really hard.
Yeah, so let's have him he's on the bench. Once Corona dies or something horrible happens to her, if we can't Gift of Immortality her back, we go, hey, You blow the whistle and then Slicer comes off running.
Yeah, if I ever didn't want a fake god, I went, how about a transformer instead?
Yeah, I don't need a false god. I need a false
Truck?
truck.
Is Slicer a truck?
I don't know what he is.
Maybe he's a
I think
boat.
he's a tank.
Tell me what he is.
Tell us what he is in the comments. And if you want to see the most powerful commanders in the format that couldn't be further away from anything these commanders are trying to do, check this video out here.